Welcome back, everybody, to Film Music Focus. Today we have the immense pleasure of speaking with composer Patrick Doyle, whom all of you know. And after so many decades of music composition for film and an incredible amount of concert music kind of in tangentially at the same time, from a family of lots of singers, as perhaps we'll talk about later on. We're so happy to have you, Mr. Doyle. Thank you for being here, and welcome to Film Music Focus with CineConcerts.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here, Justin, and hello to everyone who's joining us for this conversation. It's a real privilege and an honor to be asked to do this.
What is it like in this moment, kind of taking even just 10 seconds to reflect on the immense amount of contribution and evolution that you've helped shape the film music industry, the music composition in this art, this beautiful art that we call film music. What's it like for you just even looking back for a few seconds?
Well, I am so busy moving forward and not thinking back, being the kind of person I am, that it's rather than contemplate my navel and looking back on what I do. When I do look back, I'm always amazed at the wonderful opportunities I've had in life, to see wonderful cities all over the world, and in those cities uh, to visit them, not only to see the beauty of the world, but also to hear my music being played by musicians all over the world, including Los Angeles and in Prague and Budapest, of course, here in London, up in Scotland, in my home country. I'm very privileged because I've worked with extraordinarily talented artists, directors, and designers, and um, all producers and great writers. So I've had a very privileged and blessed career so far, and I'm well and healthy, and we're all still functioning despite this extraordinary dystopian world we're living in that no one knows quite how to deal with it mentally. But we all are very resilient human beings. But it's nice to look back and with the help of my wife and family and who supported me all through it. So I'm very fortunate, and long may it continue.
Well, I think dystopian is a very accurate word to use right now, but I appreciate what you're saying about looking forward, and for a lot of our listeners out there, many of whom are young composers or orchestrators, conductors, arrangers, up and coming, or perhaps already kind of established their careers that follow a little bit of what we're lucky to do over here at CineConcerts. But I think that's an important concept, because looking forward, as I see it, and perhaps you agree with this, perhaps not, and please chime in on this, is connected to this idea of constantly challenging yourself and putting yourself in situations that are not your comfort zone. And as we reach those uncomfortable situations as artists, it helps us to perhaps learn more efficiently, think about things in new and fresh ways, and all of the opportunities that you've been blessed with and you've earned in so many ways. Helps you to do that, to look forward, to continually kind of push your own creative craft, and I think that's it's an important part as an artist. I mean, that has to be part of your DNA, otherwise,
You stop learning, and then you stop. The thing is, the moment the curiosity stops, the creativity stops.
right.
And it's true what you say about pushing yourself and trying new things. I've always taken chances, taken risks, to be a success at anything, or prove yourself at anything, or to go for what your heart desires. You've got to push the boundaries. You've got to take chances. You've got to give yourself a few artistic sleepless nights,
Right.
and crash through the fear barrier, and put yourself into situations. I can do that. I can try that. I'll have a go at that. You have an idea, you think, I'll try that. And if you fail, you fail. But generally speaking, if you have courage, it's a cliche, but if you have courage and visualize it and push for it, it happens. Um, and as I said earlier, because I'm constantly doing this moving forward, I forget, and you become a bit sort of tough on yourself. You think, actually, if it's all stopped tomorrow, I've sort of achieved a few goals. Uh, but you
Right.
know, but the moving forward, the moving forward we're talking about, it certainly keeps the brain active and keeps you alive. And I know that through personal experience, one's music. If we're just talking about the music, that's my raison d'être, as the French would say. It's my métier, my reason for being. That, if I can say without being too immodest, it gets richer and richer every time because you're pulling on a well of experience. And for the younger composers out there, um, keep doing it and experience, keep building and on your library of experience,
Mm-hmm.
because it have courage because it will get stronger and better and different. I look back in the very early days of my career when you just shot from the hip, as they say, and you took chances and
Yeah.
everything
Right.
else. And it becomes slightly more measured through experience when you get older, but it just becomes different. It's not as if the quality is less all that time ago. It just becomes more assured
Right.
and confident in your presentation of your music,
Yeah.
and belief in it. You become less terrified, but one is always anxious to push the envelope. So I hope that's not too long an answer.
No, look, the longer the better. The more information we can glean from you, the better. Let's pivot to Henry V,
Hmm.
Saint Crispin's Day speech.
Yeah,
This,
yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this was your first feature film with Mr.
yeah,
Branagh,
yeah.
and we'll kind of talk about that, perhaps as comfortable as you are to talk about that relationship, and how it's kind of blossomed in an incredible way over the years.
Mhm.
And so this was also a film you had a role in. You were on camera in this, weren't you?
Yeah, I played the role of Alexander Court,
That's right.
who has one line, but uh,
I love
it's
that.
he's you see him sitting with the soldier who starts to question
Yeah.
the king, and then you have the famous upon the speech.
Brother John Bates, is not that the morning which breaks yonder?
I think it be, but we have no great cause to desire the approach of day.
I was on screen, on and off the screen throughout the entire picture as part of a coterie and an ensemble of actors that Ken like to have and still does work. He's very loyal to his friends who are actors and are hired because they're very, very good actors.
Mm-hmm.
And some are world famous like Judi Dench and
Mm-hmm.
Sadie Jacobi. So I played some various small parts in various films done for fun to drink in the drama literally, viscerally and live, as
Right.
it's been filmed, and I find that an extra bonus, and it's great to be part of. You really sort of soak up the spirit of the enterprise, the entire filming process.
Sure.
So I lived with the picture, both as a performer in it, albeit just to be a cheerleader and a small part in it. But nevertheless, you could immerse yourself in what would have been this horrific
Right.
experience for the soldiers. Difficult, difficult time in their lives. So that, and all the time the music was not the music, but the idea, the concern of doing the score at
Right.
the end of this um, was going through my mind. It was obviously a constant thing because it was my very first film. What was unusual about it was Nobody's Dominee, which appears at the
Mm.
end of the picture,
Yeah.
that was required to be shot on camera, so that had to be written in advance of the film.
Yeah.
And I did a demo tape demonstrating that, a full mock-up demo, and this was done on a Fairlight computer, the very first, sample computer. It was probably as big as the TARDIS and Doctor Who, but nevertheless, it was a very good demo. And the actors helped with the choir, and they brought in we double tracked them, so that enabled me to. That was an audition piece actually. I was given a grant or a small stipend to do that. The Christmas Day speech that emerged from the non-nobilis. It became. That was inspired by, you can see a very strong similarity in the harmonies in the Christmas Day speech. But I remember I've been struggling with that scene and that wonderful soliloquy. And these soliloquies are arias. They are operatic speeches. They really are, they're arias. And I struggled with this. I'd obviously had seen Ken perform it. And I had, as I was there, and it was my first film. I must have watched it 1,000 times. I don't know how many times I watched it, fretting and fretting and fretting. And I sat down one day and I started to improvise against the picture. And I think between my nerves and my anxiety about it, and the emotion of the speech, and it's my great friend up there. It's our first opportunity, huge opportunity for myself and our family. This is what you would call, I suppose, the big musical break. And when I started to compose it, I was quite moved, the combination of what I was playing and what I saw. So much so that, and I looked over, and in the distance in Shepperton Studios, where I was working late, there was Annie, the continuity girl, was still working late. And so I called up her extension and I said, do you want to come and have a listen to this and tell me what you think? So she came over and I played it live too, because in those days I had a string synth bed, a bed of synth strings. And that was, I suppose, my basic mock-up of an orchestra, just a step away from the piano and near the orchestra. That would help Ken. And in fact, I still have this keyboard. So I started to play this thing. I played it live. So I learned. I wrote the piece throughout the entire, the build up to the entire speech. And in those days, I learned to play it like a piano piece. I did a piano transcription of the entire thing. I would play it live to the picture. And then at one point I turned and she was crying her eyes out. She was just weeping watching this. And I thought, my God, she was as moved as I was. And then that was the same reaction when I played it to Ken. He was completely overwhelmed. And then the producer, he called the producer, said, you've got to come and see this. So David Evans came and I played it to him. And he just went. He just completely went. And I thought, my God, wait till you hear an orchestra play this. And then when the orchestra did play it, and Simon Rattle conducted it, and that was a huge surprise that ever happened in my life.
Yeah.
That's a long story about that sort of serendipity. And when he conducted it, I then collapsed into a state of complete kind of emotional embarrassment.
Yeah.
Because my father was there and my sister was there.
Wow.
So, and then Simon completely hugged me, and I was so embarrassed. Because of all the stress of this and the tension of this just completely sort of poured out of me, and the sluice gates opened. And of course, no film has ever been the same. Nothing will ever top that unbelievable emotion. And that piece, then it suddenly took a life of its own, and it still gets played. And
it does, yeah.
so whatever sometimes comes out of us all, and it's a miracle sometimes, whatever that I felt then still seems to translate and transmit. So I hope that I wasn't too long. And
now, my fair cousin, if we are marked to die, we are enough to do our country loss. And if to live, the fewer men, the greater share of honor. God's will, I pray thee, wish not one man more. Rather, proclaim it, Westmoreland, through my host, that he which hath no stomach to this fight, let him depart. His passport shall be made, and crowns for convoy put into his purse. We would not die in that man's company that fears his fellowship to die with us. This day is called the Feast of Crispian. He that outlives this day and comes safe home will stand a tiptoe when this day is named, and rouse him at the name of Crispian. He that shall see this day and live old age will yearly, on the vigil, feast his neighbors and say, tomorrow is St. Crispin's. Then will he strip his sleeve and show his scars and say, these wounds I had on Crispin's day. Old men forget, yet all shall be forgot, but he'll remember with advantages what feats he did that day. Then shall our names, familiar in their mouths as household words, Harry the King, Bedford and Exeter, Warwick and Talbot, Salisbury and Gloucester, be in their flowing cups freshly remembered. This story shall the good man teach his son, and Crispian shall ne'er go by from this day to the ending of the world, but we in it shall be remembered. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers, for he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother. Be he ne'er so vile, this day shall gentle his condition. And gentlemen in England now abed shall think themselves accursed they were not here, and hold their manhoods cheap, whiles any speaks that fought with us upon St. Crispin's Day!
One of the things that I have taken away from this St. Crispin's Day scene for many years, I mean, not only is it's so harmonically rich, it's musically rich. This is one of the earlier scenes kind of in our collective film history. Obviously Mr. Branagh's performance was truly brilliant, and he brought to the screen a fresh take on Shakespeare, and that's not easy to do. Every actor and their brother generally goes through Shakespeare at some point in their career if they're a serious actor. And that in itself was a very daunting task. How do you do something that everybody and their brother has attempted to do, particularly in the UK where it's part of your DNA out there, which is not so much the same out here in the States, but it is a part of your culture, your history, your DNA. And so all of a sudden we have this scene that is by itself very daunting. And then here you are in your first film and you come on as a composer. What do you do? But it has been emulated so many times since that your music has been emulated so many times in films in the decades past. And this rousing feel, this seriousness, this great weight that we feel in the scene is not only presented in the music, but there's also this other element, which one of the roles perhaps of music in film is to help give you what you cannot see, what you cannot hear, and to lift that particular emotion or emotions or highlight them. And I think your music does that here. And as I said, it's been emulated so many times over the years. I mean, even just the
yes,
and
the Austin
violin,
Atmosphere, yeah.
That in itself, I mean, but it was so fresh in 1989.
Well, the thing is, I don't know. It's I suppose that comes from my Celtic background. Those kind of figures, those turns and melismatic figures, as I call them.
Yeah,
it really comes from where my Celtic DNA, and I think they also, I cannot underestimate. One cannot underestimate the incredible performance that Ken gives, and his rendition of that speech is so inspiring, and he is incredibly musical and is a wonderful a wonderful breadth of vocal um, uh, vocal range. His vocal speaking range is extraordinary. This incredible high baritone he is in terms of the human voice, um, and the way his voice soars, as I say, like a it's a lyrical aria. It's an aria in words. So all I did was follow this performance of his. So really, I suppose I'd watched it so often. I actually knew I'd studied his interpretation inside out. And then when I struck the chord and key with his aria, then I set sail for the rest of all the other the half hour, once more into the breach, that aria as well, and upon the king. I just knew that works. So and then I started to follow my instinct. But that chord sequence for the Circuitous speech, it was actually part of my sort of fun set of chords. I would sit at a piano and play those chords. Da, dee, da. It was chord one, and he's got a seventh, then he's got the first verse, and he's got the chord, the fourth chord. So that was a progression that I actually quite enjoyed. And then I thought, oh my God, do I use this in this film? Why not? There's no rules, I suppose, and no one explained to me how to score for a picture. I just followed my instinct as someone who'd always been, in retrospect, at that point, passionate about film. But this sort of filigree figure, little, and also going from chord one to chord four, unashamedly, and not making it any more complicated.
Yeah, this is
that. And repositioning to chord four. And I felt this was and the repetitive nature of it sort of reinforced this, and this all this little that figure. I saw that as a kind of the butterfly in the tummy of anxiety for the soldiers, and that was a sort of physical manifestation of that, really. But the middle section, when it goes in, because at one point I was stuck. It's in this key of C, and I was stuck, and I thought, I can't advance this. It's got to progress, and it's got to keep the interest going and to keep this build going. So I went home one night, and I thought it's got to go somewhere else. And then, believe it or not, if I can say this, I went to the toilet one night, and I was standing there, and then suddenly the whole middle section came into my head about 12 o'clock at night, and I quickly finished in the toilet, ran downstairs, and I grabbed and my wife said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Hold on." So I ran downstairs and I grabbed a piece of paper. I wrote out some lines, and this middle section, I heard the whole middle section, da da dee da 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 ba da dee ba ba da dee da, and then in the following day, I couldn't wait to get to sleep to come in the following day. And I thought that's what it needs. It's something to go from C to E major, and it's a standard thing. It's not the first time that's been done. It's not the last time either. But it seemed to be the perfect modulation, and then back again to C. So that was the sort of the build that I needed, and but it didn't just come. There was a lot of work and a lot of sweat.
Sure.
And subconscious before it all poured out.
Sure.
But anyway, so I hope that helps.
No, it's an interesting process, creatively, right? Where it depending on what issue you're needing to solve or what problem ultimately you're needing to solve. And I've kind of viewed, certainly with not even remotely the amount of experience that you've had working in film as far as writing music for film, but it seems as though that we're presented with a number of problems that need solutions. And that's one of the jobs as the composer is to come up with solutions. And one of the things I've always appreciated about your music and as you as a composer is that you're very much, I mean this in the best of ways, a composer's composer. And you're a very serious writer, and you're always thinking about harmony and rhythm in a very trained, complex way. And oftentimes the music you give us gives us very simple emotions. Oftentimes it gives us very complex emotions, a little bit of romance, a little bit of anger, a little bit of suspense, all these things.
Mhm.
And your training comes out so much, I think. And one of the things that I appreciate about, let's take a look at this next thing from 1993, Much Ado About Nothing. And if I may comment that you've had such a wonderful opportunity over the course of your career to really deal with some very serious subject matter in your films, and whether or not you play it seriously or comedically or lightly or whatever it is of course the solution for each unique problem. But I don't know how you feel about the following, but I think from a compositional standpoint, one of the most challenging things in music as a composer is form. And in particularly when you're in a vacuum, like a concert environment, you're writing concert music, you're not really given form. You have to come up with all of your own form. And of course, one of the reasons why Beethoven was one of the greatest geniuses in our craft. He was the king of form. And I still think anything you need to know about form is in a Beethoven sonata. Pick your sonata.
Absolutely.
In film,
it's a lifetime study.
You're right. Yeah, and more. In film, you're given a little bit of that form. So let's talk about this next scene. Much Ado About Nothing. This is towards the end here, and it's super hilarious. It's so funny how he delivers all these lines. But where you choose to place your music, the form of great dialogue, the form of basically stage acting. In this scene, how did you determine where your music came from? And here it is.
Well, this is the point where Beatrice and Benedict suddenly they just give up, and they own up. We adore each other, and it's so the music has to say, okay, they do love each other now. So when it comes in, it's saying, this is the tie-up. This is the tie-up at the end. This is where the drama has finally come to an end, and the audience want to see this. So the music says, okay, you can have this. You're right. It's all fine now. They adore each other. The fun's over. Now they really deeply. So against this frivolous image that we see from them on the inside, they're just crazy about each other, and the romance is as strong as could be. So you're playing what's going on inside, and what the audience it's like give them what they want. The audience really want a little bow wrapped here,
right?
And I use the theme part in Goddess of the Night, a little variation on that. And then it develops into when Claudio comes over, you get a bit of his music, so it becomes little leitmotifs that actually represent each character, their little operatic leitmotif throughout the film, and also the octave again, that represents the opening where the women and the men get together, the very opening, and also that is reprised in the middle of the picture where you see Benedict letting us, the audience, know is in love with her, Beatrice, and you see her on the swing, and it reprises there. So there's a touch of that there, and of course, Sign of More Ladies comes at the very end. This cathartic dance at the end, where Shakespeare says, "Let's dance. Let's all have a party now to celebrate."
That's right.
So really, those are the things that actually consciously went through my head, because it was so rich in different melodies, that picture, because that was written over a year. And in fact, the overture of Much Ado was written on the banks of a Scottish loch. In fact, the only lake in Scotland is called Lake Menteith. So although a lot of the melodies were conceived in Italy, they all came rushing out in the overture, which I spent a month writing that overture. And I knew it so well, I could actually play a piano reduction of the entire overture.
Wow.
Oh, I did my damnedest to do so. So all of those, that is a proper operatic overture the overture to this picture. It's a gift for a composer. So everything is in that overture appears in all sorts of different guises throughout the entire film. This is a very, a very delicate summary of the themes throughout, wrapped up in a little bow.
It's no, and as they said, a composer's composer. I mean, it's refreshing to hear these kinds of reactions all these years later, and astonishing actually that you can recall all of these things. And
I remember clearly. I remember it's like films are a musical diary. As you know, I mean, it's like somebody hears a song and suddenly get a flashback to this college dance, and they know who was there, who was drunk, who was badly behaved, who was great fun, who was a pain in the ass, and who you still love and you still keep contact with. And I'm lucky; there's a lot of people I still really keep in contact with from my college days. No, I remember. Of course, I spent 6 weeks in Tuscany.
Wow.
I played a small part in the picture, and
again,
and I sang some songs in it. So I spent 6 weeks there and soaked up this extraordinary country, the countryside and the city of. I mean, we get so blasé; it's unbelievable. We get so blasé. Someone said, "Do you want to go to Florence?" I said, "I can't be bothered tonight." You're like, what am I saying here? I can't be bothered going to Florence tonight. So it's 35 minutes away. So I caught myself saying that once. I thought, no, I think I'll be going to Florence.
By my troth, a good song.
And an ill singer, my lord.
No, Faith, I'll sing it well enough.
So, I mean, I'm very, very blessed that all those weeks there in great company. In fact, we're working with Ken. He said, and it's in here, the Pardon God, Pardon God of the Night has already been written. And Ken said, "Oh, I'd like possibly, please, procession music. I'd like the actors to sing it going up in short." And I said, "Okay, when's that?" He said, "For tomorrow." I went, "Oh, great." So I went away that night, and I sat down and I did a minor version of the song which I sang at Hero's Grave, and the actors were called to the tennis court in this huge villa the following day, and I taught them this two-part. I gave some a drone, and the rest sang the melody on top of it. It's like plain chant meets Celtic music. So that's what appears in the film, and we actually use the actors' recording from that location as well as professional singers. And we did the same thing for Sign No More. I recorded them all in the central courtyard. You see the camera going through the central courtyard. I recorded all the actors. They all came, like a proper repertory company. Everyone was called. I called for a singing call. All the actors appeared, and in half in costume otherwise, and I had this idea to record them all singing a couple of verses of Sign No More. And all those actors are in that last recording where you see them, the camera going up and everyone dancing. Yeah. So that's full of professional singers and all the cast.
Oh, that's fun.
Captured on the day. So it's real repertory theatre, what would you say, ethos that we brought to the film. So everyone joins in, and it's a sort of organic growing process. And it's still the same with Ken. It's still the same. Nothing's changed.
Brought to you by CineConcerts.